Joshua, it's good to speak with you again.
How do you do, Mr. Poppy Libs himself?
Yeah, so for the audience who doesn't know him, this is Joshua Hamm. He's been in the comment section for a very long time, and at least since like earlier March, April this year, and he's got one based opinion after another. I've met him in person at a kind of a lunch event with Texas Nationalist Movement once, and this guy, he understands exactly what he's talking about. And correct me
Ooh,
if
I don't
I'm
know if I'd go that far, but I'm
nah,
trying.
nah. You got all of the right opinions on the most important issues, like namely defending Texas from enemies. Well, not so much foreign as domestic,
Both.
pretty much. So, Joshua, you're running for, the for the Texas State Senate, and I want you to,
No,
huh?
state house to the
Okay, so you're
Texas
state
House of
house now.
Representatives.
Okay,
Yes,
that's good. Okay, so so Texas State House, and I want you to give you a chance to talk about that all for today. And but first, let's start with just introduce yourself for my audience.
sure. It's interesting because I became more involved with libertarian ideas, but I come to it from a constitutional conservative perspective, right? You know, to understand me, you have to know that I graduated high school, the same year 9/11 happened. And so I joined the Army right after that. I thought I was going to go defend my nation and my family. And I have different opinions of what that means now. But, my background is at least third generation military on both sides. Service is important. And so that's what you do. You serve your community. And uh, it's frustrating to me how we on the right wing have forgotten that service is more than just military and fire and police. It's also civil service and civic service, and we really need to begin to honor people who do a good job. Ron Paul's a prime example. Everybody knows Ron Paul. That man is blessed among men because he actually has morals and he's stuck with them. But he doesn't have to be alone in doing that. And so as I began to, examine what I felt, how I felt, as I began to become closer to God again and to try to feel the God-shaped hole that was in my heart, I began to question also my ideas on laissez-faire economics and individualism as a whole. And I've come to the conclusion that, you need law and order in order to have a society. However, we have examples where you can have an evil society that does follow law and order. So if you're going to have a good society that follows law and order, then you have to have some sort of morality and virtue that are the ideals that society is going towards. And so it becomes incumbent to recognize that the laws that are passed, the legislation that is used, are moving in that direction. And to understand that, quite frankly, all legislation is legislating morality in some degree or another. And,
That's
and
an
so
excellent point.
you're gonna have to just try to do the best you can to make sure that you're legislating morality that is virtuous and
Yeah,
good.
and that it actually gets the job done. That it doesn't exacerbate the problem as so much of the legislative morality that we get today does. It doesn't make the problem better; it makes it substantially worse, which is always in favor of the tyrants on the left. And
Yeah.
I think what you just hit on is one of the most central truths of the human condition going back 6,000 years is that the state isn't the problem. It's human evil is the problem, and
All
you get and yeah,
all
just
humans have fallen and all humans are have sinned and are short of the glory of God.
that's
And
exactly right.
it is incumbent upon the individuals. We fell asleep. We did not pay attention.
Hmm.
And this is what happens when you let a house just deteriorate for 100 years.
Oh yeah. And this is the natural result, because if you think that changing a few laws is going to, or just abolishing the state is going to make your problem better, you're barking up the wrong tree. What you really ought have to understand is that it's human morality, and or really the lack thereof, is the central reason why we have a state in the first place, and why we have to continuously defend our state against these evil people from getting in charge. And granted, they're always going to be in charge to some degree, but we have to at least contest it. And
Yeah,
I feel like that's something that you just touched on right there, which was for the last real over a century now, they've gone uncontested. They've really like it been, there's been your precious few real leaders who have stepped up to, really push back against the state, and
and
against
even
this
when you
leader.
had the and even when you had those leaders, did they have the voices of the multitude behind them loudly? You know, did they have an army
No.
following that general?
Yeah.
No.
No. I mean, it's a straight and narrow path for a reason. It doesn't need to be wide. you know
Right.
and the and so I think what your campaign is about, and you can define this for but I would put it in my words that you're about starting to make a movement of standing up to these tyrants, to this problem of human evil, and actively trying to roll back a lot of the what a lot of the evil they're doing through the use of law. And I was
Right.
wondering, could you tell me about that? Like, what are what are your major platform issues that you think are the most important for keeping Texas from turning into California, which is like a failed state at this point?
I mean, so the first one is that Texans have in our Constitution a protection of private property built into it. And yet we have property taxes. We must abolish property taxes in the state of Texas. You don't
They gotta
own
go.
property. If ever you stop paying property taxes, you'll know who actually owns your property.
Oh
Therefore,
yeah.
you don't own it. You're just in a long-term lease. So that's got to go. And that's just off the rip. And will there be difficulties that come from that? Yes. But you have to sit there and begin to pull things back. Another personally, one of the things I would like to do, and I don't know what the best methodology for making it happen would be. We talk a lot about culture on the right wing and how we're in a culture war, good versus evil.
Cold Civil War.
Well, yeah. So one of the things that I would like to do is I would like to get marksmanship training in every public school in Texas and begin to train
Ooh.
every single high schooler in the art of self-defense, in marksmanship, in rifle training and safety. Because if you raise up a generation of Texans who understand that their rights are only defended by themselves, they become a
Hmm.
whole lot less willing to sign that off their God-given rights to other people because they're
I
going
think
to
that's
inherently
excellent right there.
understand. Right. And that's the thing where a lot of people on the right wing are like, oh, well, we need to fight the culture war. And it's like, okay. And you can do this legislatively too if you're willing to actually use the power that you have been granted to protect your people. It's more than just protecting them from the Leviathan. It's also attempting to protect them from corruption and cancer and rot. It
And I think
takes effort.
Yeah, but I think that right there, is where I think you can separate the real people on the right from the the more rhinos. And you've used this term rhino safari, which I've adopted. I think it's excellent. that
It's
you like
it's
like
primary season. Hashtag Rhino Safari.
Yes, it is. And I
Yes.
like that you're willing to use force the way the enemy is willing to use force. It's like they never asked permission before they started teaching critical race theory and queer studies and homosexuality in our public schools. It's like
Correct.
they never ask permission, and they assume naturally that this is okay. And and the right, on the other hand, we bought they've for traditionally they've just balked at the idea that we should be forcing our beliefs onto other people. And I think where they go wrong is they assume the enemy will do the same. They assume that, oh, because it's wrong for us, therefore it's wrong for them. And whereas the
It's
enemy doesn't care about that. Take it away.
I would say that's not even it. I would say that we still have a lot of people in the right wing who are still stuck in 1990, and they're going, well, you've got a huge number of people who are saying, well, this is just a discussion. And if we can just sit there and explain to them the difference between, earned income tax credit and income tax and capital gains, then they'll be able to understand, and we can get, economy working. It's like, no, none of that is going to work. None of your facts are going to change people's minds, hearts, or opinions in any way whatsoever. Shut up.
Come on, the
None of that's
minimum
going to
wage is
work.
bad for the poor.
And nobody cares. If those arguments worked, then the Libertarian Party would not be in last place for the last 60 years. None of that's going to work. You're going to have to use emotions, because that's what people care about. For people who say they understand business so much, they suck so bad at sales and marketing that it just makes me want to hit people. You don't sell what you want to sell. You sell other people what they want to buy. That's
Yes.
how you do it.
God, I mean, it's like take that. I mean, take that away. That is that is the most important aspect of sales, and you learn it on day one. And I feel like this is why they get the label autistic. It's because they're selling what they want to buy. And like that's not how you make sales. You sell them what they want to buy. And and by the way, this is something the neoliberals and the neocons understand really well, because they just lie through their teeth about everything. About doesn't matter, if they're neoliberals in the Democrat Party, they just lie about what they believe, and then they just get power and do what they want. And
See,
I wish I wish libertarians and conservatives would just take the same approach of just tell them what they want to hear. They'll give you
the,
power, and then you can do it your own way.
the thing is, if you're a good leader, you don't even have to lie.
Yeah.
You really, really don't. And the
Mhm.
example I use all the time is, we know what school choice is. And we've been talking about it for 20 years. It's got like 70% approval among Republicans and like 50% approval among Democrats and 60% approval among the independents. Like, you could do the same thing for term limits, right? But the problem is that when people are talking about it, they're going, hey, we should have liberty for parents to choose. Like, isn't choice important? Come on, guys. And that's not going to work. We know this because it hasn't worked for the last 30 years that school choice has been bandied around. However, if you had a strong person who said, we must defend your children from the LGBT indoctrination that's occurring in government schools, from the violence that's occurring in government schools, from the sexual attacks that are occurring in government schools. And the way that we are going to defend your children is to be able to have this money go to the individual students. That's how you sell it. You're selling school choice either way. It's just how you sell it. You
And
don't have to be dishonest in any way. But
no,
one of those ways people care about, and one they don't.
and people don't realize that how dangerous these public schools actually are. Like, I mean, the Catholic Church. I'm a Roman Catholic. The Catholic Church gets a horrible reputation for like pedophile priests, which not totally undeserved, but like compared to the public schools
Not
are
even
like
close.
it's not even close. I mean, it's like it's like 2 orders of magnitude bigger. The number of kids who get molested by teachers in the public schools, and not to
Yeah,
mention by other students.
yeah,
I mean, this is, and nothing is ever done about it. We saw the other day in Virginia where like where they were having this case of a father who got arrested for going to the to the PTA meeting, or not PTA, but to the school board meeting, and he was complaining about, hey, my daughter got raped, and all you did was move the rapist to another school where he did the same thing. And they
The same thing happens to teachers too.
yeah, and it's kind of like what the Catholic Church did for a while. They just moved the bad priest around, and he just racks up victims all over the place. And like, no, you turn them over to law enforcement, and have done with it. But the public school, it's so poorly incentivized, they won't do it. And but what really needs to happen is that we need actual leadership who's actually going to be like, no, screw the system. I will push back on the union. I'm not afraid, and I'm going to do what's right.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that you do when you abolish property taxes. You begin to break the monopoly on funding. If you make individual districts responsible for the funding of their individual school district, then all of a sudden they have a lot more skin in the game, right? Break the chains between the individual school districts and the state, and break the chains between the state and the feds. And I know I've heard it before, and I'll hear it again. And the answer I get a lot of times is, "But Josh, we get so much funding from the states, and this is a thing that must happen, and blah 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 blah." And the answer is, none of that has to happen. You can just stop accepting money from the feds, and more than likely, what will end up happening is that the feds will go, either you do what we tell you to do, or we're going to cut off funding. If you have a good leader, then what that leader says is, fine, Texans, the United States has just said that we are not involved in the income tax scheme of these United States anymore. You don't have to pay income taxes. We're protecting you. If any federal agent or foreigner tries to come into our state and arrest you, we are going to arrest them for kidnapping and false imprisonment. They have no jurisdiction within our lanes, period. And you do that, and you break that tie that's been holding Texas to the United States since the income tax came out. I mean, that law is not that old. It doesn't have to be here. You just have to have people who are willing to stand and spit in the eye of Sauron.
And speaking of people who are willing to spit in the eye of Sauron, not your opponent. From what you've told me about him, this guy seems like we don't really have swamps in Texas, unless you go up into the northeast part of the state, closer to Louisiana. But this guy seems like a real swamp rat. Correct me if I'm wrong. Tell me about
the Texian has voted him the most liberal Republican in the House of Representatives.
What's his name?
Kyle Cassell is his name. Quite frankly, the one thing that really set me off on this journey was when I found out that he voted against the bathroom bill to protect my 13-year-old. I thought that was a problem, a real problem. He's never seen a budget he doesn't like. He worked with the Democrats to get the current crappy Speaker of the House that we have. He sat there and helped Democrats get onto committeeships. And I just don't understand why there's so many Republicans who are willing to ally themselves with baby killers and pedo apologists. I just don't get it. I don't understand why they allow those evil people to try to determine what morality is to us. That's absolutely insane and ridiculous. Stop it. Just stop.
So tell me about like his campaign. Like, what is he running on? What are his advantages over you besides obviously incumbency? And what are you going to do to overcome it?
Okay. The biggest advantage he has is he's got $500,000 war chest already, or over that. And he is the incumbent, so he has the name recognition. He is a rancher, and he actually has a good rating from the NRA, which, although it's not as good as the GOA, again, name recognition matters. And those are the things that he has going for him, is because people are like, well, he's good on the Second Amendment, so he's good, right? That's the thing that really matters, right? It's like, you guys have drawn a line in the sand, so the federal government drew a circle around your line, and they're just taking everything else. Congratulations. You just told them what the only thing they can't touch. So they're taking everything else. the advantages I have is that I'm going out and talking to local people. I'm going to be door knocking starting in January. I've gotten involved with local patriot groups, local Tea Party groups. I've gotten endorsements from the local patriot Tea Party groups. I've gotten endorsements from the Texas Nationalist Movement. I've gotten an endorsement from Robert West's Five Star Plan group. I'm working with other people. Uh, I've already raised 10 grand, which for a no-name person, out in
Where can my followers go and donate to you, because you are an excellent candidate, the sort that a more libertarian Republican would like to vote for. And please
oh,
tell me there's not a libertarian running against you. I mean, not for the
I don't
primary, obviously, but
I don't believe so. I actually know the local libertarians and
Mhm.
I've talked to them, and I've been trying to convince them to run for mayor and city council and for the positions that
Yeah,
are quote unquote apolitical. They're not, but at least you got a much better shot if people don't see the doggone letter by your name.
yeah,
And I would
the L
much
for
rather
loser. But
I would so much rather my mayor be a libertarian than a crappy Republican. He's not
yeah,
that bad, but I'd much
there's
rather he be a
ample room for
libertarian.
improvement.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not
Hmm.
trying to be hostile, but it's like, man, if I had a libertarian who was spitting that hot liberty fire, that'd be better.
Yeah.
And
Where can my followers go to donate to your campaign then?
JoshuaHamm.com, just as it's spelled on screen, JoshuaHamm.com.
All right, good. And the but yeah, so for your opponent, it's like he's got like just a good rating from guns. That doesn't sound like much, especially when you're door knocking. How big is your district? Like what, 80,000, something like that?
My district is 6 counties.
Okay. Oh, actually quite a lot more than that then.
Yeah.
I was thinking, how big's the election? Is probably a better
The
question.
election. If I get 18,000 votes, then I win for sure. Probably only
Ooh.
need 15,000.
Okay. Eight, yeah,
Yeah.
that's about right. Yeah, so that's what I remember in the last election I did. It was about 80,000 people who voted total. And so yeah, if you can come in with like a good with a good like 18, that's about all you need for the primary.
Yep.
80,000 was the general. So
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
primary is usually substantially smaller.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. If I get 18,000 in the primary, I win. Just
yeah.
hands down, no questions asked. I win. And one of the things I plan on doing is, if I can afford it, I
Yeah.
want to put a billboard at each of the three biggest towns that are in my district that
Mhm.
says Kyle Cassell voted to allow men into women's bathrooms.
That is perfect. That is, and by the way, and Joshua Hamm will not. We'll vote against it.
Yes.
And I mean, I think that what the issues you have chosen to run on are like the obvious hot button issues anyone from the right should be running on, and
Yeah.
you should be able to just think that through. That
Yeah.
that like why would you allow stuff like this? Your base is going to hate it. Do you hate your base, or just not want to represent them? Or and if so, like I just fundamentally don't understand that mentality, for a Republican in a safe red district, why you wouldn't vote to represent your base. By the way, you are in a safe red district, right? Like, because I know
Oh,
we're doing redistricting.
yeah, no, I'd still like, I think it's R plus 22 as opposed to plus 25 or
So if
something
you
now,
win the
but
primary, you basically win. And so
yes.
this is all the more reason for, my libertarian audience, if you're, to support Joshua Hamm. If he can get in the primary, he wins.
Yeah. And I've already talked to other people and who are running, and some of them are in more combative districts. And I'm like, dude, if I win my primary, I have no problem donating money to other Texas First candidates from my faith. I don't think I'm going to need a whole big war chest of money,
Yeah.
because if I go out there, if I win the primary, I win. And then if I win the primary, I win the general, and I go out and I'm actually working the way I'm telling them that I'm going to work.
Mhm.
then I'll win re-election in a landslide. I don't need a $500,000 war chest. We can start spreading that
Yeah.
around and getting other Liberty people elected, and that could actually be a whole lot more valuable long term. I don't understand this, trying to squirrel away a whole bunch, you know.
Nah.
Now,
And
granted, I'm
the
a poor
primaries are
pleb, so a
so
whole bunch
winnable.
of these.
Like if you are a solid right winger, doesn't matter if you're a libertarian. If you were a solid right winger, you can win. And those who are not mutually exclusive from where I'm sitting, and if you act like they are, then okay, I guess they are, and you're not going to win. And
Yeah.
the LP is for you. But if you are a just solid on right wing issues, and you understand like where these people are coming from, you can win. They'll vote for you. And
Mhm.
and this is and a lot of these races, they're so winnable thanks to gerrymandering that if you can just win in the primary, which is a very small election, small, low money, that's all and you can get in and win.
It's small and low money in comparison to statewide elections or
Yeah.
federal elections, obviously,
Hmm.
But and the funny thing is that you can begin to gain power and gain credibility even if you don't win, just by being a person who is willing to stand up. Leadership isn't just being in the position; it's being the person, right? So start
Hmm.
becoming that person. Yeah, as Cyprian says, become the art.
Yeah. And basically, I think we got got a heckler back there who's gonna be anyway, but yeah, I think my last question for you was tell me about the Texas national movement that you're working with, because this is what I think is probably your most like balls out courageous position is you're advocating for Texan independence from from the federal government.
I advocate for Texans to have a voice on whether or not we should be independent. Um,
Fair
I,
enough.
I I understand the excuses and the cries, who for the people who say, we should stay and whatever. And so I don't want to be hostile. So it's like, fine, you know what? Let's let's just have a vote so that people can have a choice, and then based upon that choice, we'll move forward. I'll support either way, regardless of whether or not Texas secedes or not. What we must do is become as sovereign as we can. We must begin to claw back and make Texas the rock of the republic. Because without a strong Texas, there is 0% chance that the United States will continue to exist as a country within the next 30 or 40 years. Because you're going to have New York and California, and these, hardcore blue people are just going to keep ramping up and accelerating as fast as they can. The only chance you're going to have for the United States to continue to exist at all is for individual states to reclaim their sovereignty, to say, no, you may not do this to our citizens. We are the final arbiters of what is right and true and just for our states, because we know best what is right for our people. And then those states continue to push that on down to the counties, to the cities, to the districts, etc. Because the further, the more top down Leviathan we become, the more unstable our nation becomes, and it will implode. The best chance we have is bringing it back down as fast as we can, as safely as we can, so that we can have, you know, an actual government that actually represents its people. Maybe even a republic. Be nice.
Yeah. Oh boy. That sounds like a boy. Would that be a nice thing to have? But because we're staring at the opposite right now, where it's only guys like your opponent Kyle who do not represent us at all. They represent the oligarchs. They do not. They and even when there's no pressure on them from the Democrats to moderate, they still moderate even when they're in a safe red district, and these people are just unacceptable because they just don't represent us anymore.
And,
Joshua,
and
where Go
And
ahead.
it's economics, revealed preference versus stated preference.
I think so. Joshua, where can people find you?
JoshuaHamm.com. That's JoshuaHamm.com. For those in the back, it is JoshuaHamm.com. Spelled with 2 M's. I'm just a decent mechanic, man. I'm a truck driver, tow truck operator. I've just been working blue collar my whole life. And so I really need help. I really, really do. And I know it doesn't sound like much, but even just $5 to help me with gas money to get across 6 Texas counties matters.
It makes a difference, folks.
It really does. $5.
And
thank you.
And obviously, it goes without saying that he has the full endorsement of the Mises GOP caucus, and for what for what that's worth. And Joshua Hamm is exactly the sort of person that libertarians, in even just your classical libertarians, not even your Praxians like me, classical libertarians, should be supporting guys like Joshua. He's exactly the sort of right wing, a model for a right winger that we should be, on board with. He will stand up and protect our rights and push back against the establishment.
And for anybody who's concerned about it, because I was a veteran, I will tell you right now, right here, if there aren't tanks or missiles that are inbound against my children, the answer is no. We need to protect the Guard and pull them back from the government being able to send them to foreign wars. We need to do as much as we can. I'm going down in a couple of days to go support my local Guard unit because they're at the Texas border. But it's like, no.
I like
no
that
wars.
idea.
None.
Good.
No.
All right, Joshua, thank you for joining the program.
Be well.
Take
I'll
care,
see you
buddy.
around, man.
Good luck.